Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Final Destination 3, the novelization by Christa Faust. Chapter 8. Ashlyn was at Ashley's house getting ready for their trip to the tanning salon. Ashley's dad, Frederick Freund, was a fitness guru with a whole set of workout tapes, patented devices to blast the fat off your butt, tummy, or thighs, and special shakes and supplements to help you get all ripped and hot. Her mom, Tawny, was a retired fitness model who had made her green posing in athletic shoes, artificial sweat, and little else. At 42, Tawny still looked amazingly flawless, more taut and toned than most of the girls at McKinley High. Whenever she went shopping with Ashley, men would ask if they were sisters. She and Ashley's father met when she got hired to demonstrate the Glute Sculptor 2000 in one of his infomercials. It was love at first squat thrust, and they had been together ever since. Ashlyn had always been just a little jealous of Ashley's idyllic home life. Her parents were loaded. Her house was practically a mansion. Everything straight out of some all-American TV fairy tale. Ashlyn, on the other hand, was not so lucky. It was not like she was poor or anything. Her dad didn't beat her or try to touch her boobs. He was just never around. He was some sort of businessman, working for a company that did mysterious computer stuff, and he worked late all the time. Ashlyn's mom had died giving birth to her, so she was nothing but a glassed-in photo on the mantel, a gorgeous, smiling woman, unknowable and lost in the past. Ashlyn's stepmom, Deidre, was nice enough, but she had two little girls of her own to worry about, and somehow, Ashlyn always got lost in the shuffle. Ever since they'd met in their freshman year at McKinley High, Ashley and Ashlyn had spent nearly every waking hour together. Ashley's mom and dad treated Ashlyn like a second daughter, and would jokingly refer to the girls as the twins. They even went so far as to designate one of the guest bedrooms as Ashlyn's. A spacious, sunny room with chic designer furnishings and her very own bathroom. She had more of her stuff over there than she did back at her own house. After all, back home she had to share a room and a single closet with her sister Tyler. At the Freund house she had plenty of space to stretch out. Sometimes Ashlyn would fantasize about her whole family dying in some quick, painless accident and being officially adopted by the Freunds. "What are you going to wear to graduation, Lynn?" Ashley asked, pawing through the colorful chaos of her closet. "I dunno, Lee," Ashlyn replied. "How about you?" "Well, the gowns, or that totally dull, boring hunter green, preppy dog bed color," Ashley said, making a sour face. "So I'd say red would be out of the question." "Too Christmassy," Ashlyn agreed. "How about that cute sheer mint green kind of retro Stevie Nicks dress with the plunging neck and the handkerchief hemline? Kind of breezy, bohemian, sexy, but still dressy enough for a formal graduation." Ashley took out the dress Ashlyn mentioned and held it up to her body. "Nah," she said. "Too flower child. I want to look put together. Classy, but still hot." "Basic black?" Ashlyn asked, thumbing casually through an issue of Vogue. "You can't go wrong with basic black." "You're a fashion genius, Lynn," Ashley said, pulling out a scrap of a little black dress and holding it up in triumphant victory. "Little black dress and a tan. Perfect!" "Speaking of tans," Ashlyn said, looking at her trendy little watch, "we better get going or we're going to be late for our appointment." "Yeah," Ashley replied, pulling her skirt up over her long, sleek thighs. "My legs are so white, I look like a total dead person." "You don't want to be mistaken for that freaky Aaron Ulmer." "Ugh," Ashlyn said. "Yeah, right," Ashley said. "Only if I gained like 1,000,000 pounds and had like a total fashion lobotomy." Ashlyn giggled at the thought of a fashion lobotomy. It seemed like so many of the girls at McKinley High had been given that treatment. Take that Wendy Christensen. She was a pretty girl, but she didn't take any time to fix herself up. Ashlyn was glad they had invited her to join them in the tanning salon. Wendy would look so much prettier with a little color, and she might even be willing to accept some tips on her overall look. Ashlyn always worked very hard to keep up with all the latest styles. Though, truth be told, she knew that she and Ashley could show up in burlap sacks with brown paper bags over their heads, and the boys would still be all over them. Still, not everyone was so lucky, and she had to take Time to make an effort to help those who were less fortunate. Not to mention the whole creepy thing with Devil's Flight and all that. Ashlyn had to put that thought right out of her mind. There was no point in dwelling on bad things and getting all negative. They had their graduation to think of. It was important for them to look as good as possible, in honor of the students who would not be graduating. "Earth to Lynn," Ashley was saying. "Come in, Space Cadet." "Sorry, Lee," Ashlyn said. "I was just wondering if Wendy would call us." She checked her cell. No messages. "Don't worry, Lynn," Ashley said. "It was the thought that counts, right?" Ashlyn nodded. "Right, sure," she said. "Let's just go." Ashley and Ashlyn pulled into the mini-mall parking lot in Ashley's lowered and modded-out Acura RSX and parked in front of the bright windows of the California Sun Tanning Salon. On such a gloomy, rain-soaked day, the bright photo mural of crashing waves on a golden, palm tree-dotted beach looked like an oasis of warmth and cheer. The girls got out of the RSX and slouched to the door of the tanning salon. They were wearing matching pink see-through raincoats and had sporty backpacks slung over their shoulders. They were both sipping on 7-Eleven Big Gulps, though Ashley was drinking Diet Coke while Ashlyn favored Diet Sprite. As Ashley pushed open the door, an obnoxious electronic bell sounded. Bee-bong, bee-bong. There was no one at the front desk, which had links of bamboo nailed to it and a fake palm frond thatched roof to suggest some kind of beachside shack. A fire door at the end of the narrow corridor beside the mural was propped open with a soda can, and a wet wind and a flurry of angry Russian blew in from the back alley. Ashley looked at Ashlyn and rolled her eyes. "Not again," she said. "Do you doubt?" Ashlyn asked, eyebrows raised. "Every time we come here," Ashley said. "It's the same old, same old." She rang the bell on the counter. After a second, Yuri Yershov, the tanning salon manager, popped his close-shaved, sad-eyed head in the door and looked around. A cigarette dangled from his downturned mouth. He was pasty pale, a running joke between the girls. How could you work in a tanning salon and be so white? He had a cell phone pressed against his ear, and even from the counter, Ashley and Ashlyn could hear a shrill woman's voice screeching in Russian. Yuri waved at the girls and shrugged apologetically. He held up a finger. "1 minute, okay?" he mouthed, then turned his head and spoke into the phone. "Tenyosha, Detka, I have to go, niet. No, I am not blowing you. I'm at work. We can talk about this later." Ashley and Ashlyn giggled at the incorrect phrase, "I'm not blowing you." "It's off, Yuri," Ashley said. "Blowing you off." He waved his hand to shush Ashley, uttered another string of Russian, and snapped his phone shut, ducking into the store and brushing the water from his bristly head. Sorry, he said. "Cell phone signal is shit in here. I think the tanning beds do it. I think they mess up signal. I must go outside." "Why don't you use that phone?" Ashlyn suggested helpfully, pointing to the salon's hard line that sat on the counter, surrounded by flyers and tropical drink umbrellas. "I would, but..." He pointed to his cell phone like it was a malicious living thing. "Tanya, my girlfriend. She thinks I cheat every minute. She is always checking on me, and then she wants to ask a million questions. The boss give me shit for the phone bills if I use this hard line." As if it had hurt him, the cell phone rang. He checked the caller ID and cringed. "Mirma," he muttered. "I told her." "It's okay," Ashley said, waving him toward the door. "Just take it. Go on out. We know the drill. We can take care of ourselves. We do it all the time." Yuri frowned, considering, and then nodded. "Okay, thanks," he said, giving them a grateful thumbs up. He hurried toward the back door, flipping open his phone. "Tanya," he said, "I told you." He broke into agitated Russian, and then paused, looking back toward the girls. "Hey, no drinks in room this time, okay?" he told them. "Sure," Ashlyn replied, and she and Ashley nodded and obediently dropped their half-full Big Gulps into the trash can. Whatever you say, sweetheart. No, 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 Yuri was saying into the cell phone. Tenyosha, baby. She's just client, I swear to you. When he reached the back door, Yuri realized that he had left his impromptu doorstop back on the counter. But going back to the counter would mean he would lose his signal. He looked around desperately. Next to the door was a cardboard box full of tubes of tanning lotion. He grabbed a tube, stepped outside, set it between the door and the jamb, and let the door swing to. Satisfied that the fat tube would keep the door from closing, he returned his attention to his phone. Over his head, thunder cracked and the rain began to fall a little harder. As soon as he was out of the door, Ashley retrieved her big gulp from the trash, sticking her tongue out in the direction of the back door. Together, she and Ashlyn crossed to a glass canister that was full of rubber tanning goggles floating in a blue liquid. The sign over the canister read, "Sterilized goggles. Caution. Alcohol is flammable." "Every time we come here," Ashley said as she picked a pair of goggles out of the alcohol. "I know," Ashlyn said, selecting a pair for herself. "That girl must be the best lay in the world." Ashley turned on her, frowning archly. "What? Lynn, what are you saying?" She made a dismissive noise. "Third best, tops." Ashlyn laughed and raised her hand for a high five. "No doubt," she crowed. "First and second are already taken." The girl slapped hands, bumped hips, and then turned to the towels on a long wall-mounted towel rack to wipe the goggles dry. Ashley turned to the hall that led to the tanning rooms, but Ashlyn looked at the front door and paused. "Hold on a sec, okay?" she said. She crossed to the desk and picked up a flyer and a Sharpie. "What are you doing?" Ashley asked. Ashlyn scrawled on the back of the flyer, then found some tape. "No one's walking in and seeing me naked," she said. "Not for free, anyway," Ashley replied, and both girls giggled. Ashlyn put tape on top of the flyer and slapped it on the front door, then turned the deadbolt, locking it. The note read, "Back in 30 minutes." She turned to Ashley. "Yuri can take it down when he comes back," she said. Ashley nodded. "Good plan." She stretched, cat-like, up on her tiptoes. "I was thinking of doing 20 minutes in the Muller," she said. "We did that for the funerals and it turned out totally amazing." Ashlyn frowned, unsure. "That was only a week ago, though," she said. "We're still pretty bronzed, maybe only like a 10-minute touch-up? I don't want to wind up with some sort of gross cancer or anything." Ashley nodded, considering this very seriously. "Maybe so," she replied. "I just want to make sure we totally look our best, you know, as a tribute to all those kids who died that night, and..." She swallowed, suddenly overcome with emotion. "And who will never get to graduate." Ashlyn bit her lip, holding back tears of her own. "Yeah," she said. "We, owe it to them totally." They touched fists and put their hands over their hearts. "Come on," Ashley said as she threw her pack over her shoulder and turned toward the hallway that led to the tanning rooms. "Let's get to it." Ashlyn fell in step and they walked bravely down the hall. "Straight up," she said. At the back door, unnoticed by the girls or Yuri, the cap of the tube of suntan lotion popped open under the steady pressure of the emergency door, and tanning cream began to slowly ooze from the tube. Steam boiled around the peach, marble, and cream tile of the bathroom that Wendy and Julie shared as Wendy pushed the door open. The sound of the shower hissed softly, underscored by singing, a slow, melancholy tune Wendy didn't recognize. The outline of her sister's body, elbows up and twisting at the waist as she shampooed her hair, was barely visible through the steamed-up glass door of the shower stall. Julie, always the social butterfly, was probably getting ready to go see some of her older friends graduate that night. Wendy, on the other hand, would not be attending. She had other things to take care of, like packing and deciding what she would need to take with her for that intensive Greek and Latin language program she had signed up for at summer school. Of course, she would not be leaving for more than a week, but there was no point leaving everything until the last minute. As she stood there, struggling to stay focused on the safe, simple, and comforting task of organizing and planning what to bring, Wendy found her mind obsessively picking at the pointless conversation she'd had with Kevin and the other survivors. What was he trying to prove with that ridiculous urban legend bullshit? Going back to school and talking had been a mistake. It had taken a lot out of her, and she had little to spare. It took every drop of energy she had to keep the wolves of grief at bay. Wendy stepped up to the sink countertop, cluttered as usual with Julie's makeup, skin creams, and hair care products. Her combs and brushes and blow dryers, curling irons and nail files, toothpaste, rings, necklaces, and earrings. The mess was a source of constant bickering between the sisters. Wendy was meticulously neat and organized. Julie was not. As an attempt to keep the peace, her father had remodeled the countertop so the sink was in the center, with two distinctly separate areas, one on each side, complete with their own drawers. Julie was given the right side for her things and Wendy the left. This was fine at first, but Julie's mess was constantly creeping over onto Wendy's side. Lipstick, printed tissue, and cotton swabs, black from touching up liquid eyeliner, made their insidious way across the divide into Wendy's territory, and Wendy's expensive whitening mouthwash or brand new tweezers would migrate back into the chaos of Julie's side. Standing there now, looking at the scattered disaster of Julie's things, Wendy felt a strange wave of melancholy love for her little sister, underscored by a needling anxiety. Julie was already a wild child, and she was only a junior. What would happen next year when she was a senior and Wendy was not around to keep an eye on her? Wendy opened the bottom drawer on her own side and removed her travel case, unzipping it and checking to be sure everything was full and ready to go. Once she arrived and settled into the dorm, she would buy full-size bottles of everything she needed, but she wanted to make sure she would be covered for those first few nights, in case a trip to the store was not practical until later in the week. Shampoo and conditioner were both fine, but the bottle that held her body lotion was a little low. She refilled it carefully, wiping the neck with the tissue before screwing the color-coded cap back on. Toothpaste, dental floss, mouthwash, and toothbrush were all good to go. Folding travel hairbrush, sewing kit, and a sample-sized bottle of a new perfume, a fresh citrus scent that was not too heavy and would be perfect for the summer. After a moment's consideration, she added a small packet of cold water detergent and a stain-removing stick, in case she needed to hand-wash some clothes. She paused for a moment, holding the stain stick and looking at herself in the mirror. How utterly ludicrous of her to be worried about being able to stop an accidental chocolate stain from setting into her skirt when she hadn't even been able to stop the ride that killed Jason. She bit her lip until she tasted blood, eyes narrowed to slits against the threat of tears. She let out a long, shaky breath, then put the stain stick in her bag and removed her little first aid kit. She inventoried its neatly compartmentalized contents until she was able to breathe normally again. The kit was low on adhesive bandages, so she added a few more of various sizes, and checked the date on the little tube of antibiotic ointment. It was still good for another 3 months, but if she did not use it up soon, she probably ought to replace it. First aid kit set and ready, she gave the whole travel bag one more going over. She had her tweezers and face cream and a few emery boards, but her nail clippers were nowhere to be found. Unsurprisingly, Wendy spotted the nail clippers on Julie's side, half buried in a nest of cheap jewelry. She picked up the clippers and a whole snarl of tangled beads and chains came with them, glittery earrings and bangles tumbling to the floor and into her unzipped travel bag. Sighing, Wendy scooped up the fallen items and then began fishing things out of her bag. She found a necklace of pink ceramic cherries, a dangling beaded earring, a silver heart that had lover on one side and fighter on the other, and a pink plastic cuff with black rubber spikes. The water turned off and the shower door scraped open. Julie looked out at her, her hair streaming with water as she groped for a towel. "Hey there," Wendy said. "Hey sis," Julie replied. "You planning on stealing my jewels to finance your tuition at Yale?" I couldn't pay for a mail-order degree in dog grooming with this junk, Wendy said, holding up a gaudy plastic flower ring like something a kid might get out of a gumball machine. Julie chuckled, wrapping the towel around her head and stepping up to the mirror, unmindful of her nudity but still crossing her arms self-consciously. She did this habitually, not to cover her budding breast, but to cover the thick white caterpillar of scar that bisected her sternum. Julie hated that scar, left behind long ago when doctors had sliced her wide and cracked open her pliable infant ribs in a desperate race to rescue her failing heart. The scar was like a brand, marking her as unfit and unwell, a physical reminder of the hidden defect that stood between her and the normal teenage life she craved. Wendy felt that pang of anxiety again. How could she leave Julie behind? "You're just jealous of my unique, ultra-cool, shabby chic sense of style," Julie said, utterly unaware of her sister's worry. "You wouldn't know cool if it jumped up and bit you." Wendy shook her head and tried on a smile. It worked out okay, but didn't last. Sighing, she left the bathroom, tucking her bag under her arm and heading back to her room. In her bedroom, Wendy put the travel bag into the inner pocket of her open suitcase and then turned to the closet, surveying her clothes with an eye towards summer in New Haven, Connecticut. Before she had made any decisions, Julie stalked out of the bathroom, a second towel wrapped around her body, and pulled up high to cover all but the very top of that hated scar. "You really are trying to steal my stuff?" she said. "Come on, give it back, Wendy." Wendy turned, blinking and confused. "Huh?" she frowned. "What do you mean? Give what back?" Julie marched to Wendy's suitcase, snatched up her makeup bag, and unzipped it. She dug furiously through it until she found what she was looking for. She held up her prize, angry and triumphant. It was a silver Art Deco bracelet from the 20s, beautiful and delicate. "This," she said, shaking the bracelet so it jingled softly. "This is my good luck bracelet. Mine. Grandma left it to me in her fucking will. If you think you're taking off to Connecticut with it, you're out of your fucking mind." Wendy blinked at the bracelet. "I'm sorry, Julie," she said. "I totally didn't realize it was in there. I guess I'm a little distracted." "Well, I guess so," said Julie, unwilling to let go of her anger so quickly. "I guess I better check all your bags before you go, just to make sure you don't distract away any more of my stuff." She turned on her heel, storming back to the bathroom, bracelet in hand. Wendy slumped, suddenly feeling 100 years old. "Julie?" she called. Julie stopped, impatient, then spun around. "What?" "You were right," Wendy said softly. Julie snorted. "Of course I was right," she said. "It's my bracelet. Grandma gave it to me, not you." Wendy shook her head. "I know that," she said. "That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, I could use some help." Caught off guard, Julie's face softened. She came forward and sat on the bed. "What's the matter?" she asked. "Is it the crash?" Wendy nodded. I just have such guilt over Jason. She paused and then sat down beside Julie, hands open and helpless. "I should never have let that ride go. I'm usually such a control freak." She shook her head ruefully. "Jason and I had a fight about it actually, right before we got on the ride. I didn't do enough to stop it from happening. I should have done... I don't know, anything, something, whatever I could to stop it. I'd do anything to have a second chance to go back and change it." She felt the tears again, pressing on the inside of her eyes, fighting to escape, but she held them back. "But I can't, can I? I can't." Julie looked away, but her hand reached out and touched Wendy's arm. "It's the worst feeling in the world," continued Wendy. "Wanting to take something back or change something that you can't change. I just don't want to feel like that about you someday." Julie looked back up and then away, suddenly cagey. "What do you mean? I didn't go on any rides." Wendy patted her hand. "That's not what I meant. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just so confused." She looked down into Julie's eyes. "When I get settled, can you come and visit me for a while? I think when I finally get away from this town, I'll be ready to work out all this stuff I'm feeling. I know you and I never really talk. and I want to change that. It's like I still think of you as a baby who might eat poison or put her finger in the electric socket the second I turn my back. I'm sorry for that, Julie, and I want to find a way for us to be more like equals." Julie squeezed Wendy's hand. "I'll come," she said. "You know I will." "Yeah?" She looked at Julie, raising an eyebrow shyly. "And we can put this teenage sister bullshit behind us?" "Totally," Julie said. She looked down at the Art Deco bracelet she held in her hand. "Here," she said as she put the bracelet down on Wendy's desk. "You need some luck right about now, way more than me. You keep it for a while. I'll get it back when I come to see you." Wendy smiled, touched, and nodded. "Thanks, Julie," she said. "I can use all the help I can get, I guess." Suddenly, Julie sat up, shaking off the unexpectedly sentimental mood. "Oh, hey," she said. "Since we're swapping stuff, I just remembered I wanted to ask you, can I use the yearbook camera to take some snaps at graduation tonight? Perry's brother said he's going to pull some big prank, and I want to see if I can catch it on camera." "Sure," said Wendy, as she stood up and crossed to her desk. "As long as you take it back to Mr. Smith tomorrow." "Sure," Julie said, standing. "No problem, sis." Okay, Slashaholics, this has been Chapter 8 of Final Destination 3 by Christa Faust. Once again, we didn't get a whole lot of, action stuff, and the deaths haven't really started up yet, as far as, death starting to get everybody that should have died. But the thing about Christa Faust, she can really entertain you with just character development. I really enjoyed the scene with Yuri, the Russian guy. First time ever attempting that, by the way, when I narrate. I know it was probably a horrid Russian impression, but I did my best, I promise. And the whole thing with Ashley and Ashlyn was fun. We really got to see how these characters are. Got a little backstory on why they're so close. And then we got a really cool moment with Wendy and Julie. We got to see what their sister relationship was really like. As much as they were formative and fighting and stuff a lot of the time, they still have their sentimental moments. They still love each other, and they're still going to look out for each other. So I thought that was cool. How Julie went from being all, selfish and stuff about that bracelet to being like, you know what, my sister could use this more than me, and giving it to Wendy. I did enjoy how the chapter ended with her going to get the camera. Because, spoiler alert, in 3, 2, 1, if they go by the movie, this has got to be the part where she looks at the pictures on the camera and starts seeing the weird coincidences and stuff. So I'm hoping the next chapter picks up with that, because that's something really cool about this particular Final Destination movie. The way she looks at the pictures and sees that they kind of tell a story. And I'll be back very soon with more of this story. Until then, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying, thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon. Tonight's upload is brought to you by our patrons on the Patreon page. That's Tony DeVore, Tyrone Kennard, Nick Velcarve, Jeffrey Quick, Daniel Mackey, David Arnold, Alex Vanover, Krista Campbell, Rob Davey, Jay Gardner, Willow Ravenwood, Lauren Vaught, Kristen Kay, Michael, William Schaefer, Liam Anderson, Bree, Bonanza Jellybean, Ryan Woodward, Allison Seib, Iron Alexa, Hawaii, Cecilia Spears, Sean Campbell, Catherine McClear, Simonoli, and Carl Eakins. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel on Patreon. I couldn't do this without you. The channel would not exist without you. So 1,000,000 times thank you. Alright everybody, be excellent to each other. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.